Hello and welcome to our next episode of the Mixtapes, where we chronicle stories of mixed race individuals and interracial relationships. I'm Nikki and I'm here with my co-host Amber. Hey Amber, and we are so excited to welcome listeners to the podcast today. So, to start us off, Amber, tell me something good.
Something good. Well, I have recently started to wear my hair natural and I'm really trying to embrace that. It's different for me. I usually wear my hair in braids or twists with like hair added in. And I decided I needed a break. So I'm embracing that. It's a little weird for me, but I'm going to claim it as something good.
I love that. And for the listeners, Amber's hair looks really, really cute. I know you can't see it, but it looks so beautiful. So she's rocking that natural look. Just had to say that.
Thank you. Okay, Nikki, tell me something good.
Something good for me is that the weather is finally warm. I went on 2 walks today with my dog. So it was really,
Nice.
really nice. And I come alive when the sun comes out. So I'm feeling so much better. And I recovered from the flu and I can breathe. So lots to be grateful for today. Thank you for
Yes.
asking.
Of course. I'm so glad you're feeling better too. I know that was pretty brutal.
Thank you. Yeah, it was rough. And something that's so silly is people keep saying like, yeah, like I heard this year's flu is really bad. And I'm like, isn't every flu bad? Like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know how to react to that. I'm like, yeah, like it was really bad, but I've never had the flu before, so I don't know. But
Oh,
have you ever had the
well,
flu?
I have. And the flu is awful. Like, it definitely, you were out for the count for like a week, weren't you? So
Yeah,
that's pretty
literally.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was actually worse than when I had COVID, which is crazy because I remember when the COVID like quarantine first started, they would tell people to come home for like 2 weeks. And it's crazy because I remember like within a week I felt pretty much better with COVID, but I still had that additional week off. And
Yeah.
then now it's like, oh my God, like I didn't feel good until way after. So, but it's interesting how that works, huh?
I guess everybody would be out like all the time if they were, like if they had to
Mm-hmm.
quarantine for the flu, because that's like something that like we've had, around
Mm-hmm.
for a very long time. And COVID was so new and it was like such a respiratory it was like an attack on your respiratory system. So
Mm-hmm.
people were like legit dying from it. But I feel like you can die from the flu. So
You can't. That's the first thing the doctor said to me. He was like pissed because I didn't get my flu shot. And he was like the first thing he said was, "Did you get your flu shot?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "Well, 36,000 people die each year from the flu." I don't remember the statistic, but it was 36 something. I think it was 36,000. He was like, "In America, they die of the flu each year. And like, you could be one of them." And I was like, "Okay, damn." Like, but
yeah,
valid.
but like maybe some of those people, have other things that are wrong with them. Just like the people that have died from COVID, I mean, not most of them,
Sure.
I don't want to speak for everyone, but like probably had like some other sort of like, immune deficiency or
Mm-hmm.
they were older.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
The flu can be intense, but I feel like sometimes when people die from, you know, common colds or flus or stuff like that, it's because they actually have like a weaker immune system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It's totally possible. But But anyway, yeah, so listeners, we've been compiling kind of like a list of like representation you could say that we see on social media or things that we see on social media that come up in regards to like biracial mixed race identity and also like interracial relationships. So today we're kind of just gonna like pick one and run with it. I'm curious, Amber, out of all the ones that we listed, what feels like a place to start?
Let's see. I'm thinking, well, I guess the first thing that I just want to like give like a shout out actually for this one. I see like sometimes I'll see like TikToks or like, Instagram
Mhm.
reels and it'll be like a white mom or a white dad, just basically somebody that's not a person of color. And they have like a biracial child or even like they've adopted a child that's not the same race or like a child of color. And they genuinely learn how to do their hair. That for me is like the most beautiful thing in the world. Not like like not the most beautiful thing in the world, but I just really appreciate that. Because hair is such a big deal. Like when we started this podcast talking about hair, like it's such a big deal, and it just is so important for it's tied to like our identity, especially for African American girls, or I'm sure I don't know like about like Latine children, but like our hair is like a reflection of ourselves, right? It's like an
Mm-hmm.
extension of that. And so when you make that effort to actually like, you know, say you have like a black son that you adopted, and you like make sure that his hair is cut, he goes to a
Mm-hmm.
barbershop, or it's brushed and moisturized
Mm-hmm.
properly, or you truly know how to like work with the texture of like your biracial daughter, or like and actually do
Mm-hmm.
something with their hair and not just go like, well, I don't know. Because I've seen so many stories of like grown-ups who are biracial or mixed race,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be like, my mom didn't know what to do with my hair, so it just was always a mess. It was always tangled, and then like they would like talk down to them like, oh, you're a mess of a hair. And it's just I just really appreciate the effort. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna marry somebody outside of your race, like know their culture and know what's important,
Yes.
and then like just embrace that. So I just, when I see those videos, I'm always like, yes, like thank you for doing that. And like I, oh, especially like when I see like the dads like doing their daughter's hair,
Mm-hmm.
like, and like like just making the time to, they're taking the time to like use the right products and like really brush
Mm-hmm.
it, and like it's also a bonding experience. So I don't know, that's just like a shout out like to the families and parents that make that effort.
I love that. I have a not so happy story
Okay.
in that exact arena.
Okay.
Um, when I was a kid, so growing up, and my hair really isn't that curly. I mean, this is its natural wave. You can see it right now. Like it's not super. It's just like little curls. I don't have like the chart in front of me to tell you, but it's not super curly, but it's
Right.
curly. And in fifth grade in the fall, we were all getting ready to go on this big. It was like the one field trip that we went on. It was called Nature's Classroom, and it was like a overnight like camping trip. And we had like a lice outbreak like the week before. And lo and behold, me and my sister had lice, right? So my mom was out of town for the weekend, for the week or whatever. She was doing something for work. So my dad had to come pick us up from school. It was already traumatic because my dad was a CO, he was a corrections officer. So like getting out of work early wasn't a thing. So me and my sister had to sit in the nurse's office all day long that day. It was like right in the morning that they found out we had lice. And there were kids getting like lice throughout the whole day, coming in, getting their tests, and then going home with their parents. But we had to like literally sit and wait until 3:30 so that my dad could come. So my dad pulls up and gets us from school and takes us to the store. We get the lice shampoo and we get home, and he's like washing our hair or whatever. And our hair, like the way that it reacted to the lice shampoo, like, and my dad didn't even think to brush our hair before washing it. He just literally stuck our heads in the bath and like poured the water on there, poured the lice shampoo on there, went crazy trying to get the lice out and rinsed it off. And by the time we get all said and done with this affair, you could not run a comb through my hair at all, or my sister's hair. Like you could not like you could barely even, like it was just like a lump of like, just, it was just so gross, like mangled like hair because there was no detangling, there was no, you know what I mean? Like it was just like, you can imagine like if you don't brush your hair, then you wash it, and then it's like, but then you've got the chemicals. So he pulls up to what the heck is it called? Supercuts. My dad pulls up to Supercuts and brings us both in and sits us in. Is like, can someone please see them cut their hair off?
No.
And the woman gave us both like very very short like boy haircuts. Like she just cut the knot, like the globs out of our hair. Yeah. And we were so, I still, what's so funny, what you remember? I still remember the breeze. Because that's the shortest my hair has ever been. It was like boy
Yeah.
short, like not to gender it, but you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
I remember like being cold because I wasn't used to not having hair like on my neck. Like I just, that's all I can remember. We had gone like pumpkin picking or something. It was the fall. And I remember just being like, I'm freezing, like, and feeling so ugly. Like we literally looked like two little boys. And that was really just because of, and I'm sorry, Dad, I love my dad, but he didn't take the time to learn how to take care of our hair. Like, so he just was like, lice out, cut it off, call it a day. Like,
Like problem solved. Problem
yeah.
solved. So you mentioned that you having short hair and like it felt like, you know, you felt like you had a boy haircut. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
why, and I know that we like kind of briefly talked about this before we hopped on, but like I wonder why we as women, and not all women, but think or associate like having short hair with being like masculine,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um like my hair for right now, for example, is in these like little like mini twists. But like my actual hair is a lot longer than it's presenting right now because shrinkage is real. And when you twist when I twist my natural hair and put product in it, that makes it shorter. Um, and so I'm like I said, I'm trying to embrace it, but I feel like a little self-conscious because I'm like, I don't feel feminine as I usually
Yeah.
do. And like, I have it styled like really cute and like, it's working, but I feel like longer hair makes me feel feminine. It also
Mm-hmm.
frames my face better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, it's a genuine, like purposeful style. I wonder why we like associate like, short hair with being
Yeah.
more masculine. And just like feeling uncomfortable, especially when you're used to having like longer hair. Like I'm used to
Mm-hmm.
like being able to like flip my hair, and that makes me
Right.
feel like, like that's a diva.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And then it's interesting because I don't know if you feel this way, but it's like it would make me feel masculine, but then when I see a woman with short hair, like she could still totally be a diva and look totally feminine. So
Right.
it's like that like double standard to yourself of like you feel like you look masculine, but if you saw another woman with your exact haircut, you'd be like, "Oh, she's so pretty." Like not
Yes.
even thinking about how yeah, and like masculinity and femininity are so interchangeable and like you can be both all the time. So
Absolutely.
that's interesting. But yeah, definitely shout out to the parents, especially white parents who learn how to take care of their black and brown kids' hair. I will say it's like a double-edged sword because part of me is like, well, that's the bare minimum. Like,
Right.
but it should still it does still make me happy because it's not always the norm. So,
Exactly. Yes. It is the bare minimum. It's like you should know how to do your kid's hair.
hmm
Um, you know, my 5-year-old has very long hair
hmm
and it's, very curly, not as curly, like not the same curly texture as mine, but it's curlier
hmm
than his dad's. And
right,
his dad like genuinely took the time to figure out like how to wash and detangle his hair. So like if I ever went out of town or like went somewhere,
hmm
I would know that like if something happened, like his hair would be taken care of. He knows how to
yeah,
detangle it. He knows how, like, what products to use. Like
yeah.
all of the
It's just good
things.
parenting.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, you should just know how to take care of your kid's hair,
Yeah,
like, regardless of your
like
race
period. Yeah,
at the end of the day. But, like,
yeah.
I think, and I don't know, like, do you think that, like, making a video about, like, doing your, like, biracial kid's hair is, like, I don't know. Do you think it's something behind that a little bit, or do you think it's like a genuine thing? Like, what do you think?
Well, I have an issue with kids being used in social media, period. Like, I'm so uncomfortable with that because why? Like, and there's a difference between I think like there's some people I know that don't even want to take like a picture of their family and put it on Facebook, which
Yeah.
I understand, but I think that that's different than like I'm gonna film my kid getting their hair done so I can post it and prove that I'm a good parent. Like it's like and maybe their intention, I don't know. It never sits right with me. Because I just don't think it'd be different if like you filmed yourself talking about how you did their hair and then maybe just showed a picture of like literally the back of your kid's head with the hairdo. Like
Yeah.
that, sure. Like but there's just something about filming kids, especially when they're vulnerable, like getting their hair done is kind of vulnerable. And then putting it on the internet, like I just always think about that because I'm like, how would I feel like as an adult if I had a bunch of videos of me as a kid on social media? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And then while I was listening to you, I was thinking about like the trends that I'm seeing, like who
Mm-hmm.
is doing this and the ones that like, and once again, this is just what I've seen. This is just my
Right.
experience, but the videos that I've seen, it's like white parents filming their biracial children and them saying like,
Mm-hmm.
"Look, I did their hair," and then like a whole bunch of people in the comments are like, most likely, on average, like people of color, like, "Good job, way to go." But when I see like black moms doing their daughters or sons' hair, they always show the back, and they're just like, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
tutorial. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
exactly.
It's not
Yes.
like, let me
Yes.
showboat my kid.
It's not a
It's
show and
more,
tell.
it's like, hey, this is how I install these braids. This is how I straighten this hair with this, new blow dryer brush.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tutorial. It's not, let me show you my kid on my camera and be like, look at my little cute biracial kid, which, whatever. But like, it does feel like it's kind of like trying to get props. Like, I appreciate that you're doing their hair. And I feel like what I really appreciate is when I like see it in my job. Like, I'm an educator. So when I see like, kids who have been either adopted or have like a white, parents, and their hair is done, then I'd be like, "Hey, like, our dad, like, way to go."
Right.
That's a different story because they're not like putting it out there. They're just like taking care of their kid and sending them to school. And
Right.
I'll be like, "Oh, I love the braids you did on so and so." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Like, but I would say that to any mom or dad. You know what I mean? If it was a cute
Yes.
hairstyle. But like, I just want them to also like get a little bit of props. Like, I really appreciate it because, like I said, I'm an educator and I've been in schools where like there was a student that I knew who was adopted, and he was black, and both of his parents are white, and they
Mm-hmm.
never took him to get a haircut. His hair was
Mm-mm.
matted and it had lint in it and it was dirty. And I was like, I literally went to the family and was like, I will take him to a barber shop. And they were like,
Fucked
well,
up.
no. And that was my way of being like, do something
Mm.
about this because this is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because there
Yeah,
are
100%.
people that adopt, children of color for like their
Mm-hmm.
like to feel good about themselves, and they
Yeah.
don't like invest the time and energy it takes to actually take care
Yeah.
of the whole child.
100%. There's like a whole in Colin Kaepernick's thing on Netflix, Colin in Black and White. There's like a whole episode about that. But that's exactly what happens. Like it's like his hair was like all fucked up, and then mom finally takes him to a black salon, and then he's like styling, but then they don't upkeep it, and then like the dad says that he's trying to be Allen Iverson. There's like that whole thing, like which is crazy. But you know what's so funny, and not even funny, but another crazy story on this topic is I had a girlfriend last year who told me, who was also an educator, who's mixed race and has Afro textured hair. And one of the students' moms came up to her, and this mom has one child that's adopted in black and one child that's biological in white, and was like, "Hey, I need your help doing so and so's hair." And she was asking for help doing the white girl's hair. And she asked her white child's black teacher for help doing the white child's hair. And I just remember the two of us were dying at that because we were like, what? Like, what, what exactly does she have to offer in terms of the advice?
Yeah,
Like, she was like, it would have been one thing if she was asking the other daughter, who is black, how to do her hair, but what made you think to ask me that? Like,
that's
I don't
interesting.
know.
Yeah, like that was
Right.
actually a question asked of her. I wonder what her intentions were behind that. That's
I
interesting.
don't know. When we're done recording, I'll tell you who it is. But
I think I have an
anyway,
idea, but I hear you.
but
What was
yeah.
I gonna say? No, when you were talking about Colin in black and white, I was like, yes, like green, like
Hmm.
so hard. I actually really love that episode. I
Same.
mean, because I appreciated how he, like was able to show, like, reenact that journey that he went through. And I was like, I remember feeling like this, like, extreme visceral reaction when, like, his mom was like, oh, you're like a thug, and like she was like visibly uncomfortable going to like the black, beauty salon.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then remember, like, his braids hurt so bad and he didn't know what to
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
And his parents were just so uncomfortable with his hair. And he mentioned that he didn't get his hair braided again because his mom was so
Yeah.
uncomfortable with
Yeah.
it until he was a grown up, like in his 30s. Like, he was like, okay, or maybe 20s. He was like, then I got my hair braided again. But that is like a reality for a lot of students, kids that are transracially adopted.
Right. Right. No, it's 100% true. Like, I remember, I mean, that series is so powerful in so many ways, but one of the things I remember sticking out to me was when his parents like really refused to acknowledge that he was black until there was like that situation with the police officer where they were like teaching him how to drive or something, and they drove the same route every weekend, and but the dad was always driving, and then the one time that Colin was driving, he got pulled over, and it was like the first time his parents realized like our kid is black. And like this could be a problem. Like he's gonna face like some sort of like scrutiny or discrimination or whatever. Like they didn't even realize that until they were literally sitting next to him in the car watching him be like a victim of racism, which is
Yep,
crazy.
it was
And it's just like
crazy.
you have to do work. Like if you are going to have a child that is a different race than you have to put in the work. Like you really do. It's
You
crazy.
do. They're not just like for show, and like I don't know. I just feel like
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of people do that. Like it's for
I
show.
could
You know
say
what I mean?
so
Like,
much
oh, I
about
have
that.
like my cute
Yes.
little biracial
Yes.
child
Yes.
that I want to show off. And
Yes.
like but in at the home when like they're not like in public, they're treating
Mm-hmm.
their kids like crap. And
Mm-hmm.
I've heard so many stories just like, in my experiences at like the people of color conference or like, like where I've gone to like, like biracial identity, sessions, and people will say like there's a extreme difference with like, maybe having like a white mom versus like a mom that's the mom of
Yes.
color, like the mom
Yes.
is the person of color,
Mm-hmm.
and like how they are really able to embrace their identity.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, your mom is Dominican. Do you
Yeah.
feel like your identity was molded and shaped because of your mom, or do you feel like it? Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah. It's well, that's such a nuanced conversation because of like I feel like you can almost always tell, at least I can almost always tell when someone has like who the white parent is based on how the person presents themselves. Like you pretty much always tell when someone has a white mom versus when someone has a white dad. It is almost just obvious. Like, but what's interesting about Dominican people in general is this like aversion to being considered to be a person of color, regardless of their actual skin tone, because we come in all shades. Dominicans are on all shades. There are white Dominicans, there are black Dominicans, there's everybody in the middle. So, but in general, like if you ask a darker skinned or a black Dominican, like, how do you identify? Like, or are you black? They're going to say, no, I'm Dominican, which is crazy because they're both, but whatever. And so like within that whole spiel is like a whole nother thing. I will say like my auntie, more specifically my oldest auntie, she was the oldest when the family moved here from the island. So she was like 13 or 14, but then she went back and forth. It's confusing, but she was pretty much back and forth from the DR to the US until she was like 20. And then she moved to Albany and whatever. So, but she is very, very like affirming to all of us, like girls as kids, like you are Latina, like you are this, like you are that, you are strong, you are fire, use your voice, all those things. Like she was very much into that. My mom, it was like a little bit different. Like she she was in a lot of ways empowering, but it was almost like, and she's the youngest. So she was born here in the United States. So she's never, really had citizenship or anything like that in the Dominican Republic. And she presents as a woman of color 100%, but she's not as dark as her sisters, which is interesting, I think,
Mhm.
also. Um, but anyway, so she kind of was always more so like trying to be white. And that's the way I saw it, at least. Like, she was straightening our hair ASAP. I was in like fourth grade when I got my first chemical keratin, like hair straightening treatment. And like, that's what Dominican salons are known for, by the way. Like, they are known for the press, they are known for the relaxer. Like, that's a Dominican blowout. Like, they like pelo bueno, pelo malo. Like, that's like a thing. Like, and so I don't know. Like, in a way, it's like, I don't fit necessarily that stereotype of having the white dad. Like you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's because of my mom's own like anti-blackness and own like aversion to her culture. Like it's really interesting actually because she just went on vacation to the DR and went to like the most touristy area, Punta Cana. And she
Hmm.
goes there every year and goes and stays on a resort. It doesn't leave the resort. And so it's like there's there's lots to unpack with her. But I will say, like, I did have lots of positive Latino role models in my life who taught me like how to take care of my hair, how to present myself, how to, and in the same tone though, it like there's a lot of like that like white adjacency within my family. Like how to dress for an interview was like rammed down my throat, like this hyper professionalism. Like you have to put your hair up, like you shouldn't be wearing lipstick. You should be, walking this way or talking this way. And so I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Um, if that was like my longest way to say that, like like I definitely see that stereotype myself, and I don't know that I fit it
Mm.
because of the nuances within my own family.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's definitely a thing. But I hate you brought up a really good point, which is the props thing. And I hate that. That drives me crazy. I have so many stories of people that like claimed to be woke or claimed to be with it or whatever because they're adjacent to somebody who is. Like, do you remember that person we both know who was a white person who married a Hispanic man? And then
Yes.
said that she felt more like a Latina, so she should be going to a people of color affinity group when she is just a full white woman.
Right. I remember that. And I
Yeah.
was like, girl, like, it's
Yeah.
okay. Like, you're white. It's
Like
okay.
own it. Own it. Yeah, be okay with it.
It's so weird. And it's like, okay, so that particular person is like, I identify so much with this culture. And then, like, on the other hand, like, there's like, experiences like similar to your mom where she's like centering whiteness and trying to get
Mm-hmm.
away from, her Dominican
Mm-hmm.
identity. So that's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. And then it's like, and there's so many journeys of like people who go in and out, and like it's so interesting. Like one of my aunties, like she uses the like you can change the skin tone of your emoji.
Hmm.
She uses the white emojis. And this woman she's a dark skinned woman. Like,
Hmm.
and it's like, it's just so funny to me that she does that. Like, but then, like the other day we're having a conversation and like she's starting to be really fearful of how she's showing up in the world because of ICE, right? And she's a citizen and whatever, but because she does not present like a white person. But I almost want to ask her, and maybe I will. I probably will. And if she's listening, she'll probably get a giggle out of this. But why are you using the white emoji? Like you're not white. Like
Girl, there are some black people that use white emojis, and I'm like,
what?
you could change this. And they're
That's
like, this is
crazy.
the one I like. I'm like, okay, but you could change your emoji. So, like anytime that I can like, if I select like the thumbs up or the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yay or whatever it is, like I
Yeah.
always make sure it's like dark skin because I'm
Right.
like, that's
Like
me. Like I don't feel right. Like giving a thumbs up and it's
mm-hmm.
not like what I look like. I don't know because
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know. I mean, and then like, I also saw this TikTok that was saying, um, if you have like a white mom and a black dad, for example, like this is what the TikTok had, um, then you're biracial. But if you have a black mom and a white dad, then you are black. And I was like,
I
because
love that.
but the point was that you get your culture and your identity from your mom more than
Mm,
anything.
mm,
That was the idea behind it. And, you know, I was just like, that's interesting because, you're telling like what you're saying about like where you got from your mom, but like obviously you had like aunts and that were able to like kind of like lead you down like here's your actual culture. But what do you think about that? Like, do you think that like I have biracial children and I know that they're biracial children. Like I don't like try to tell them like you're only black, but
mhm.
in the world, if they're like driving their vehicle, like Colin Kaepernick and his, they
Yeah.
are going to be seen as,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
people of color. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to like solely focus on like you're only this race because that's
Mhm.
not the truth. They are two different
Mhm.
races, but like, I don't know. In my mom, like my culture and identity definitely comes from my mom. she was like, Black power, blackness,
Right,
like
right,
you're Black.
right.
She called me, my brother, like chocolate, like she was
I
like,
love that.
like my little, like she always just said like, she wanted us to embrace that we were dark skinned and like
Affirming.
that we were Black and
Mm-hmm.
like, she affirmed that for
Mm-hmm.
us. Um, so it's like, I'd never like ever deny or doubt that I'm Black. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
I don't know. Then I think about like the book, like The Bluest Eye, where that was by Toni
Hmm.
Morrison, about
Hmm.
this little girl who wants blue eyes because she thinks that that is like the definition of beauty. Like she is a little Black girl and she wants to have like blue eyes and like blonde hair because she thinks she'll be beautiful. And I remember reading that book, like, girl, like, what? Why would you think that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you should look
Mm-hmm.
different. So it wasn't like I was like wishing I was a different race ever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've
Of
never wished that. I wish that like things could be a lot easier for people of
course.
color
Right.
in the United States. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously that, that's a thing, but I've never been like, I wish I looked different.
Yeah.
Because I grew up knowing like this is who I am and that's okay. Um, but like I do believe that you get a lot of your culture and your identity from your mom.
I
So
100% agree. And I was thinking it was about how in like Jewish culture, like that's how Judaism is passed down is by the mother. Like it's in
mhm,
the matrilineal line. So like that's like a big thing within Jewish culture of like dating because it's like, Jewish men want to find Jewish women because that's how it's passed down, which is really interesting. So I totally see that and totally agree with it. I wonder, it'll be so interesting to see how your kiddos like identify. I do think so much of it ends up being how you present,
mhm,
and like your babies present like Black children. Of course they are, but it'll depend on how they see themselves. I mean, even within families, like my brother is significantly like lighter than me and my sister. Me and my sister aren't even the same tone, and we're twins, which is
right,
crazy. But like, if you put the three of us in a line, it's like light to dark.
right.
So, and he doesn't necessarily identify, like he just kind of says like, yeah, like I'm Latino, but I'm also white. Like, I don't know that he fits like with that label. I don't know. It's interesting.
So it sounds
And
like
then
he identifies with both sides of his, racial identity.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. And like that idea of yeah, like how you're going to identify. I don't know. And then there's like the whole one drop thing too of like, back in the day, it's like if you were 25% Black, you were Black. Like, and so it's interesting. And I think there's some power in identifying that way, like, and like a reclamation of like, and not to ignore your white side, but to just like say, like, like I am, like, I don't always lead with the fact that I'm biracial. Like, I start by saying I'm Latina. Like,
Mhm.
because that is feels more important to me to name. And then
Right.
I'm like, yeah, and I am half white. Like, sure, like that is true. Like, but it's not as like much of a salient part of. I don't know if that makes sense. So
No,
it'll
it
be
totally
interesting to
does.
see how your kids identify. But
Yeah, and then like we haven't really talked about it much, but since we've been doing the podcast, but I also have a daughter from a different relationship, outside of my marriage, like not outside of my marriage, like I cheated, but like before I got
yeah,
married.
yeah, for sure.
Um, and she is Black. And they 100%, my two boys are like, that is our sister. Like, no, and I know that there are some families where, it's like they go out of their way to be like, no, that's my half sibling, or like, you know what
For
I mean?
sure.
Like my two
Yeah,
little guys are like, no, that is our sister, a
that's our
hundred
big sister.
percent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they don't see like, oh, like she looks different than us. They're
Mm-hmm.
just like, that's our big sister. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some families where like that is like that colorism comes up. You
Totally,
know what I mean? And
totally.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, you're from a different part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting too. So I don't know. They just see her as their big sister and that's it. And
Right.
when I raised her, I was like, I was raising a little Black girl,
Right. Yeah.
So she knows who she is.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I
Ah, so
also raised her
interesting.
to be open minded. And
Mm-hmm.
so like I feel like she'll probably end up marrying outside of her own race or being with, or
Maybe.
not even marrying, but like just being with somebody outside of her race because, she's just, I didn't want to emphasize like, only stick to your race. Like, I feel like
Right.
maybe not that necessarily my parents said that, but like, it felt like that was like my best option and that they would have preferred that. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to like make this a thing. I'm just going to be like making sure that, she knows, be with whoever is like going to be nice to you and makes you happy.
Right.
And like, that's your life. You know what I mean? I never wanted to come off as like, I'm going to judge who you're with, regardless, male, female, black,
Hmm.
white, Asian, Latina, you know what I mean? Like, just be
Yeah.
with the person that you truly just, like makes you feel safe and happy and secure. So I think because of that, my daughter's more open minded. And then she's seen me date, different races of people, when it was just the two of us. And then I ended up marrying like, a white male. So it never felt like for her, she wasn't like, oh my gosh, like you're marrying a white guy. She was just like, okay, you know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
my the extended family, like my parents were like, what is this? So
Hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting.
I feel like some of that comes from like insecurity too, because it's like the goal is like that your daughter will be so confident and like affirmed in who she is as a black woman that like it doesn't matter who she's with. Like
That's right.
that's never going to change. That's never going to sway. Like, and I feel like that's where sometimes that insecurity can come in, and like the fear that like if my child is with someone outside of our race that they're going to change themselves, or that
Right.
they're going
Or
to try to be something that they're not.
right. Or they don't like themselves or they don't like
Right.
value their identity.
Right.
And that is
Right.
not the case
Right.
because not to like put my brother's business out there, but he also married someone outside of his race, and we grew up in the same household, grew up in the same neighborhood. It wasn't like we were like both seeking out like, oh, we're just gonna go completely opposite because like I said, my mom was like, you're black, you're black, you're black. Like I had to have black Barbies and black
Love.
art and we had black
Love.
Santas. And I love that. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that's awesome. But then when I started getting my own place and decorating, I was like, I just want things that like reflect me and the things that reflected. I wasn't like, she would be like, oh, here's this black art, put this in your house, or here's this black Santa. And I was like, okay, thanks. But like, that's actually not like, I'm not against it, but it's also not reflecting me. Like, I wanted to decorate my Christmas stuff with snowmen, and like snowflakes because,
Yeah, you didn't even want Santa.
but it didn't even
Yeah.
happen right. Cause like,
Yeah.
I didn't even really want to be like, it wasn't even about Santa. Like, I wasn't like, I didn't have like this big emphasis on like, Addie has to know Santa's black. It was just more like,
Yeah.
I didn't even want to lie to her about Santa at all, like to my daughter. So I don't know, the Santa thing and like, when I had my own apartment, like my mom would like give me like black art for my apartment. And I was like, thanks. Like, but then I started like coming into my own and my style it just wasn't her style, but it had nothing to do with like I'm not like anti-black. It was just like, that's just not a reflection of me,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
so I don't know. And I think that's how I just raised my daughter is to just be like, we are black women, but there's so many other parts of our identity too.
Yeah.
Like I like movies and music and, so like
Yeah.
I want to decorate like this, like, or
Hmm.
I really like quotes, I like to decorate with like, things that say powerful statements that I need to be
Yeah.
reminded of. That is a reflection of me. It has nothing to do with artwork. So, but then I found myself today like, oh, I want to put some stuff in my office. And I was looking at like black art, like or women quotes of empowerment, because that's just where I am in my life. And maybe that I can, attribute that to my mom. But I don't know. It's you're always figuring out your identity and what you
Yes.
like and what your personality is. And I'm 41 years old and I'm still, like
Yeah.
trying to define that. So I'm embracing
And it's
it.
going to continue to change. It's going to continue
Exactly.
to change and evolve as you get older. Like that's the beauty of life is you can continue to change how you feel and how you weave in and out. And like, nobody can take away your blackness from you. Like it's not going anywhere.
No. I will say though that like recent years, and I would say it probably has a lot to do with like where I'm working because I feel like I can be more comfortable with owning
Mhm.
this. Like I've been wearing like, like all my Black History Month shirts every day. I
Yes.
mean, I got a shirt on today that says like Black and Legendary.
Slay.
But I would not like at a previous school would not have ever worn this shirt. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
finding that I'm, being more comfortable with owning my Blackness and, like,
Mhm.
in my identity. So yeah, this was an interesting topic.
That's beautiful. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I wanted to be mindful of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we close out?
Yes, let's do that. Let's close out. I have a card I'm gonna pull really quick for our closing.
Awesome. Love.
I have this the Nap Ministries rest deck.
Ooh,
So it says 50 practices to resist grind culture. Um and
need
so
that.
I'm gonna pull this card to close out our episode. So let's see. I'm just gonna pick a random one. Oh, good one. This says, my dreams are enough. My existence is enough. And then on the back, it says, you are enough now. Everything you need to craft a rest practice is within you. You are not the problem. Capitalism and white supremacy are the problems. Let me read that again. Capitalism and white supremacy are the problems. You are not the problem. Your rest work is to liberate yourself from both ways of thinking and being. Resting in a capitalist system is an act of resistance.
Ooh,
Every day, you can create a moment of rest by daydreaming. Keep resting.
I needed that. Thank you.
Especially in the times right now.
Oh
Like,
my God. That is
rest
so true.
is resistance.
Rest is resistance.
We got to
Rest is
get out.
resistance.
Yeah, we got to get out of this hustle grind culture, especially as women of color. We
Mm-hmm.
are not responsible for having all the answers and doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely don't need to be centering whiteness
Mm-hmm.
in anything that we do. So with
Oh,
that,
I have to say this one thing.
abs-
I know we're trying to end, but I have to say this one thing because this
go
has
for it.
been so on my mind. I've been seeing so many people in like the news and in media and whatever in the past couple months talking about how like if we deport all of the migrants, like who's gonna do this or who's gonna do that or who's gonna do this. And I can't stop thinking about the fact that like we are more than the work that we provide and we are more than the labor that we provide for this country. Like Latinos, like we are more than that. Like you don't have to do shit to be worthy of existence. Like, and I just felt like that just preached that to me, like in the choir, because I keep thinking about that over and over and over again. Like, I'm worth more than the labor that I provide, and you are worth more than the labor that you provide.
Amen. Absolutely. 100%. And I also, speaking of that, like I also saw a TikTok that said, like, okay, what if like we did like, go ahead and like, get rid of everyone and like,
Mm-hmm.
like let's get rid of DEI, let's get rid of,
Mm-hmm.
like all the things around like LGBTQIA plus community stuff, like all of that stuff. Let's say like let's move forward and just wipe all that out, right? Deport all the immigrants, all of that. What would be left would still be a problem. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
100%. And it'd
Like,
be fucking
and then
boring
what you
too.
gonna do? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like we bring people of color bring so much to
Mm-hmm.
this world. Literally, I grew up learning that America is a melting pot of everyone. Like that is what makes America great. Speaking of make America great again, you know what I mean? Like what
God, yeah.
makes America great, people,
Yeah.
is all the beautiful people in America. You know what I mean? Like it's all the nationalities, it's all the identities. So get rid of us and you're gonna be missing a lot of things. So good luck.
Yeah, and your food's gonna suck too.
You're
But
right.
but anyway, you are enough. You are enough, Amber.
You are enough as well, Nikki. I love you. This
I
was a
love you too.
great conversation and I can't wait to have another. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in, and we will be back again in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Podcast releases on Fridays. And if you are interested in joining us, talk about your identity, to talk about your interracial relationship, or you want to talk about racial identity issues in America or anywhere for that matter, please reach out to us on our email at mixtapespod@gmail.com. We are also on Instagram at mixtapespod. Anything else that we need to add to that, Nikki?
I think that's it. Like and subscribe, as they say.
Yes. And definitely keep tuning in. All right. We love you and be safe.
Are we still recording?